So today we're going to talk about egress windows. When you are working, especially with the basement or remodels, it's something that kind of can get forgotten about, and it really needs to be the forefront of your mind. It's a safety thing, and it's never going to just slip under the radar. It's always important. In order for it to even be classified as a bedroom, it needs ingress and egress. So we're going to use this lovely one that I completed recently, and is going to lay out and just some kind of things that you can work on with it in order to make sure that the windows that you're placing are going to meet your egress requirements. So I'm going to go into this. It's a walkout basement, but if you're considering looking at bedrooms, you also need to consider where grade is going to be. So in this instance, grade is up here. It's not showing. I don't have it with the topo yet, but being a walkout basement, the grade starts up here and it travels down to be pretty much flush with the downstairs. So this window would be below grade and is going to need a window well, likely. Whereas this one, being that it comes directly to the outside, it can be egress. So starting in the basement, we're going to look. This one again would need a window well. I currently have a single hung in there, and so we're just going to open it up and look at it. And it's 48 inches wide and 60 inches tall. Now, egress requirements are that it has to be more than 24 inches wide and 20 inches tall, or vice versa. I always just rule of thumb, I'm 24 and 24. Even though that the code says one of them can be a little less, I just always operate off of 24 and 24. So it's 4 feet wide and 5 feet tall. So this, being that it splits directly in half, is going to be 30 inches tall, and 30 inches is more than 24, so we're good. And then width, 48 is also more than 24, so we're good. And then it has to be more than 5.7 square feet. So if I do 2.5, which is 30 inches, 2.5 times 4, we're 10 square feet. Plenty of space. And the final determination of boxes that has to be checked is it can't be more than 44 inches from the floor. So here, this floor to bottom number, you just look at that. And as long as it is 44 or less, you're good. So this one's 36, we're good. So what I do is I go into options over here and I check mark that it says egress. So any window schedules that I have in the schedule, it will say egress yes. And that's with the default as well. I use upgraded toolbars, and it has other macros and cool stuff. But even with just the base Chief Architect, it will say in the standard schedule, yes, egress. So now looking back at these two bedrooms, both of them have ingress and then they have egress. So this is the same size window as before. So we already went over that this size will accomplish the egress. So I'm gonna make sure to check egress on this one. This one has 2 and they're different size. So we're going to reevaluate these windows and make sure that they still qualify. The square footage cannot be a combination of the 2 windows. Each window has to stand alone. Does it meet the egress requirements? You only need one that meets it though. So if you had kind of a modern style, so a big picture window, and then you had just the operable on the side that's a little bit smaller, maybe your operable meets the egress requirements, and so the picture doesn't have to open. It's fine. But both of these either could work as the egress. So it's 3 feet wide, which again, more than the 24 rule of thumb that I go with. And then it's 5 feet tall again, so 30 inches, also more. And then the floor to the bottom, less than 44 inches. So both of those are good. Now, if someone wanted to make this flex room a bedroom, they couldn't, because there is no egress window in this room. And so they would have to cut an egress window of some sort and over on this side is a crawl, and this side is the garage. So this flex room can never be a bedroom because there's no way for it to have egress. Unless they had some weird kind of window well coming out here into the main part of the living space, and I don't really see that happening. Same with this back storage, while a strange shape, could technically be a bedroom in the future. They would just have to put a window well somewhere on one of these exterior walls. I wouldn't want to walk through the mechanical room to be in a bedroom though, so each their own. And then if we go upstairs, so this room, again, it has the 4050 windows. So either of these can function as your egress. So I'm gonna open them both up and check mark egress. But this back bedroom is a little bit more unique in that there's also a hinged door. So the hinged door could act as your egress if you didn't want to put windows on anywhere here, or if you wanted these windows to not open, to not be operable windows. You could make them picture windows, and then this door would count as your egress because it's going directly outside, and it definitely fits all the criteria. It's definitely wider than 24 inches. It's definitely taller than 24, and then floor to bottom is 0 because it's a door. So then you don't really need to worry about that one. This front bedroom has 4 windows. They're all the same. It's labeled as an office, but it does have the egress if they wanted to make it a bedroom. This one, they're not planning on it, and it's got this double door, but if necessary, it would qualify as an egress. And then the primary bedroom, formerly known as master, it is the 3050 again. So we already established from the basement that these will suffice. So I'm just gonna open them up. Option, egress. Now these actually are 5'6", not 5 feet tall. So they are even better. They're 3'6" by 5'6". So both are large enough. Floor to bottom is 30 inches. So I opened them and I selected egress. Now some considerations to have when you're working on a property. So I'm going to use these windows as an example. They pretend that this is a bedroom instead. So I know it's the dining room, but we're just gonna pretend. And let's pretend that for whatever reason, we had a covered patio off the back. So I'm gonna say yes. So we're playing with roof lines here. This happens a lot with 2-story rooms when you have some structure or something that's covered. So let's pretend this were like someone's front porch, and then you had a cover on the front porch that came up, and this is a bedroom, and it's the only logical option for the bedroom's location. So obviously these 3 windows are in the middle of the roof, and that's not going to work. And so the couple options we have in order to make sure that this will work for an egress is we could make it a shallower pitch. So I just opened it up and changed the pitch to a 3. And we're going to let it reprocess. And now this is at the very bottom of these windows, but that could easily, we could just shrink these guys up and say, okay, this bedroom now, instead of 6 foot tall windows, is only going to have 5 foot tall. It also currently only has an 18-inch bottom component. That's not going to work. It's got to be minimum 24. So if I go 24 and 42 here, this will meet the minimum requirements. And then you go 2 times 3.5 is 7 square feet. So we're still good there. And so in this imaginary bedroom, now those windows have been lifted, but they still meet egress. And then it would give that space a little bit of extra definition. The other option that we could have looked at, let's say for whatever reason that roof pitch had to stay at an 8. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to modify the roof pitch, but strange things can happen. let it reprocess. And we're gonna see kind of what's going on here. So if I open each of these and I make it only 24 inches tall, just to see what happens. So those windows technically would just barely scooch by on not touching the roof. So let's say that you just absolutely want them to be this size, and this is a bedroom in here, and you're like, oh, it's fine, I'll just have the bed underneath there or something. Well, now we got to check the rest of the requirements. So each of these individual windows, they are 3'6" wide by 2 foot tall. So 3.5 times 2 is 7 square feet. So we are okay there if each or at least one of these opens. So you can either have a casement, or in this instance, you probably would want an awning. So it opens from the top. So we're going to swap those out. So technically, this meets the square footage requirements and the operable requirements, but it is not meeting your 44 inches from the floor requirement. It is 72 inches. So we would have, the only way that this could work is if you had steps with a platform of some sort that goes all the way up to only 44 inches from the floor. So we'd have to have something 28 inches tall, whether that's a tiered bookcase or actual steps up to it, and it has to be a permanent fixture. It can't just be a piece of furniture. So I would go back to the client and I would say, you know, we really need to lower the pitch of this roof line. If this were a remodel and that is a room that didn't used to be a bedroom, but now you want to be a bedroom and you can't move the roof, then your next option is you're just going to have stairs of some sort that would walk up so that you could get out. This isn't a perfect example because I do have this deck right here that if this were my imaginary bedroom, I've got a slider right here that qualifies, right? But just imagining that the deck doesn't exist or access to the deck cannot exist for whatever reason, and you have to make egress windows out of these, you're going to have to do something, whether that's a permanent built-in desk at 30 inches tall so that desk is what you can step up onto and get out. But like I said, it's got to be permanent. It's got to be built in. It can't be movable. It cannot be a piece of furniture. And sometimes permitting bodies really don't even like to allow that as a workaround. It kind of depends, I think, who's going to be reading your plans. But while technically you could argue, oh, well, you can just step up here, some people differ in their interpretations of what is permanent and what would count for that. So it's just things to keep in mind. Maybe you do a bed platform that it is completely built in and 30 inches tall for whatever reason. It'd be a really tall bed. But if your platform is up there and it's accounting for those 44 inches, then that does count. So something to keep in mind, especially when you're converting spaces in a remodel that didn't used to be a bedroom into now being a bedroom. And also when you're doing a remodel, just because something has been used in the past as a bedroom does not mean that the egress requirements are automatically satisfied. So you really need to look at each of those bedrooms with a bit of scrutiny. And if you have to bring it up to your client to say, hey, this is not going to work, you have to be able to back that up and say, this, for these reasons, you can't have this be a bedroom. I don't care that you've been using it for a bedroom for 20 years. It hasn't, you shouldn't have. And you need egress so that people can escape during a fire. It's a safety thing. It's not just to be dramatic. So look at all your bedrooms. Make sure that every bedroom, every time, meets your egress requirements. and then make accommodations or alterations in order to make sure you always have egress. So that's how you check using Chief Architect specifically. And don't forget to check mark egress, so in your window schedules it's going to say yes, egress. Talk to you soon.